Ford once built an engine so big, so wide, and so powerful that it physically would not fit inside the car it was designed for. So Ford did something that sounds completely insane. They took every single one of these cars, shipped them out to a secret outside workshop, and had them cut apart and rebuilt by hand, one at a time. And here is the twist that almost nobody knows. After all of that effort, after all that money, this monster engine was never actually meant to race in that car at all. The whole thing was a trick, a loophole, a Trojan horse hiding in plain sight on a Ford showroom floor. This is the story of the 1969 Mustang Boss 429, the most powerful engine Ford ever handed to the public, and the strange, secret reason it even exists. Because to understand the Boss 429, you first have to understand who Ford was terrified of. In the late 1960s, Ford had a nightmare, and its name was the Chrysler 426 Hemi. On the giant high-bank super speedways of NASCAR, the Hemi was an absolute monster, blowing the doors off everything Ford could throw at it. And in NASCAR, winning on Sunday meant selling cars on Monday. So getting humiliated in front of millions of fans was a disaster Ford could not accept. Ford's engineers knew they needed a brand new weapon, a big block V8 powerful enough to finally match and beat the mighty Hemi on the banking. So they went to work on a new engine built around their latest 429 cubic inch design. But there was a catch, and it is the entire reason this story exists. NASCAR had a rule called homologation. You were not allowed to race an engine unless you also sold it to the public in a real production car, at least 500 of them. In other words, if Ford wanted to race this new engine, they were legally forced to build street versions and sell them to ordinary people. And that single rule set off one of the wildest engineering scrambles in muscle car history. Because the engine Ford built was a beast unlike anything they had made before. The engine Ford created was officially a 429 cubic inch big block, but it was nothing like a normal one. Its secret lived in the cylinder heads. Instead of standard combustion chambers, Ford designed special aluminum heads with a unique crescent-shaped, semi-hemispherical chamber, their own clever answer to Chrysler's famous Hemi design. This let them fit enormous valves and massive intake and exhaust ports into the engine. The ports were so big and breathed so much air that the engine earned a nickname that stuck forever. People called it the shotgun motor because looking into those huge ports was like staring down both barrels of a shotgun. Underneath those heads sat serious racing hardware, a forged steel crankshaft, 4-bolt main bearing caps to hold everything together, and an aluminum intake. This was not a street engine that got a few upgrades. This was a purebred racing engine, designed to scream all the way to 7,000 revolutions per minute on a super speedway. It was a genuine masterpiece. There was just one enormous problem, and it nearly killed the entire project before it began. This giant engine simply would not fit inside the car Ford had chosen to put it in. Here is where the story gets strange. Ford needed a popular car to sell this engine in to satisfy that 500-car NASCAR rule. And the obvious choice for the actual racing was the Torino, a bigger car with plenty of room. But Ford made a marketing decision instead. They wanted their hottest, most famous name attached to this new race program, and that name was Mustang. So Ford decided the street version would be a Mustang. Not because it was the right car for the job, but because Mustangs sold magazines and put fans in seats. There was just one little issue with that plan. The Mustang's engine bay was way too small. The shotgun 429 was so physically wide that it could not even come close to fitting between the Mustang shock towers, the big structural pillars in the engine bay. On paper, the project was impossible. You had a monster engine and a car it could never fit inside. Most companies would have given up or simply switched to a bigger car. Ford refused. Instead, they came up with a solution so extreme, so labor-intensive, that it is almost hard to believe a major car company actually did it. Ford's answer was to perform surgery on every single car. They could not modify the Mustang on their normal assembly line. The changes were just too drastic. So Ford handed the entire job to an outside specialist company called Kar Kraft, a contractor in Michigan. And this was no ordinary garage. Kar Kraft was the same elite outfit that had helped build Ford's legendary Le Mans winning GT40 race cars. Here's how it worked. Mustangs would roll off Ford's regular assembly line, actually built as Cobra jet cars, and then get shipped straight to Kar Kraft's facility. There, teams of engineers would tear into each car by hand. They widened and physically moved the shock towers to make room. They re-engineered the front suspension and lowered the control arms. They relocated the heavy battery all the way back to the trunk just to balance out the massive weight of that engine sitting up front. They even added a rear sway bar, the first ever fitted to a Mustang. Every single Boss 429 was, in effect, hand-built. And to prove it, each car received its own special Kar Kraft serial number and a NASCAR identification plate riveted right inside the door. A permanent stamp announcing this car was born to go racing. But after all that work, Ford did something that seems to make no sense at all. With this race-bred monster finally crammed into the Mustang, you would expect the meanest, fastest pony car ever sold. But on the street, the Boss 429 was strangely, almost disappointingly tame. And that was completely on purpose. Ford officially rated the engine at just 375 horsepower. Almost nobody believes that number. The real output in street trim is widely thought to have been closer to 500 horsepower, and in full NASCAR race tune, well over 600. So why lie and rate it so low? Two reasons, and they are the usual suspects. Insurance companies were brutally punishing high horsepower cars, and a lower number on paper meant cheaper insurance and easier sale. On top of that, Ford had to meet emissions rules, so they deliberately choked the street engine down, fitting it with a mild camshaft, a smog pump, and a conservative carburetor. The result was bizarre. Those gigantic ports were designed to flow huge amounts of air at 7,000 revolutions per minute on a racetrack, but at low speeds pulling away from a stoplight, the engine felt lazy and flat. The Street Boss 429 often struggled to break into the 13-second range in the quarter mile, which on paper made it look slower than cheaper muscle cars. But that was the disguise. With a few simple tweaks, owners could wake the sleeping giant and run deep into the 11s. The street car was never really the point. And the proof of that is the most ironic twist in this entire story. Remember why all of this happened in the first place. Every bit of it, the special engine, the hand surgery at Kar Kraft, the NASCAR door plates, all of it existed for one reason: to make this engine legal to race in NASCAR. And here's the loophole that makes it all so wild. The rules said Ford had to sell 500 street cars with the engine. But the rules never said the street car and the race car had to be the same body. So Ford exploited that perfectly. They sold the shotgun engine to the public inside a Mustang, but they actually raced it on the super speedways inside a completely different car, the sleeker, more aerodynamic Ford Torino Talladega. The Boss 429 Mustang you could buy was never meant to race at all. It was purely a Trojan horse, a street-legal admission ticket built only so the engine could be approved. And the engine itself did its job, helping power Ford to NASCAR victories, with David Pearson taking the 1969 championship in a Torino running this very engine family. But the Mustang that carried that legendary name to the public, it never turned into a competitive lap. By the time Ford had built enough of them to satisfy the rule, the racing landscape had shifted, the program wound down, and the Boss 429 Mustang's own racing dream quietly died before it ever began. So in the end, the Boss 429 was a contradiction wrapped in sheet metal. It was a thunderous race engine deliberately muzzled for the street. It was a Mustang built to go racing that never raced. And it was a car so difficult and expensive to build that Ford could only justify making it for 2 short years. With a price tag near $5,000, almost double a basic Mustang, and brutal production costs, the Boss 429 was quietly killed off after 1970. In total, only around 1,358 of them were ever built across 2 years. Just 859 in 1969 and fewer than 500 in 1970, making it one of the rarest factory Mustangs of the entire golden era. The styling was special too, penned by the legendary designer Larry Shinoda, the same man behind the classic Corvette Stingray, and crowned with the single largest hood scoop ever bolted to a production Mustang. But here is the beautiful ending. The very thing that made it so impractical, that hand-built rarity, that secret racing purpose, that monstrous shotgun engine, is exactly what makes it priceless today. The Boss 429 is now considered one of the holy grails of the muscle car world, with pristine examples selling for around $500,000 at auction. A car that was essentially built by accident, just to satisfy a rule book, became one of the most valuable and legendary Mustangs of all time. That is the real secret of Boss 429. An engine too big for its own car, surgically hand-built one at a time, underrated on purpose, and slipped to the public through a NASCAR loophole. Also, it could go race in a completely different Ford. It was never supposed to make sense. It was only ever supposed to win. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden engineering behind this legend, subscribe, because we are always cracking open the secrets buried inside the greatest muscle cars ever built. Thanks for watching.